Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Wait.
Let's wait for a few moments
Yeah, sure.
for joining.
How are you?
Good. Uh, I guess we can start. Others will be joining through YouTube.
Okay.
We are also broadcasting this on
Okay.
YouTube. So, uh, good morning, Anjana, and good evening, others. So, myself, Nias, I'm working at a startup based in Kochi, and we have Anjana here, one of the Malayali faces in Spotify. I guess we can hand over to Anjana.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me. And sorry for taking over your Sunday afternoon, evening plans. When Mia's reached out and I thought it would be good to talk to you. I'm currently a senior UX writer at Spotify in London. And before this, I was at the Spotify headquarters in Stockholm. And before that, I was with PayPal in both Bangalore and San Francisco. And I was with Zomato before that in Delhi. So Niaz asked me to join. I said, okay, let's. Yeah.
So, can you give a brief about what UX writing is and just
Yes. I think there's a common misconception that we write only. Well, everyone comes to me and goes like, "Oh, can you give me? Can you tell me what this button needs to be called?" So I think there's a common misconception about that, and that's not the only thing I do. I would say writing is about 15% or 20% of what I do, but we are also designers in a way. We help with user research. I've started helping with wireframing and things like that. So it's more like you start with product at the kickoff meeting, and then you decide what needs to be done, and you just contribute. You contribute through user research, competitive analysis, but I just approach things from a messaging standpoint. So look at like how we say something and when we say it. So I would say it's a UX writer is a designer, but our output is in words.
okay, cool. So, can you tell about your journey to Spotify? I mean, from Kochi, you are from Kochi, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, your journey from Kochi to London or Spotify, say.
Um, so I studied in Cochin. I did my schooling there, then I went to Bangalore for my undergrad, and then I was in the UK for 5 years.
Okay.
I worked in publishing here at the time, where I sort of gained my editorial skills, which come into use on this job.
Okay.
And then I moved to Zomato, which when I joined was really small. We were 250 people, and now like I don't know 10,000 people. So we were 250 people, and I just sort of like got to do a lot of things there. Um, I joined as a content associate, so I helped like with the information architecture of the page, what info needs to be there, how we collect them, and how we collect the info, and how we lay it out, and how we communicate to our users. So I did a lot of comms work at Zomato, and I was also doing a lot of in-product writing and talking to our users and understanding how they speak and what words we need to use. So I think I didn't know UX writing was a thing when I worked there, and I think I found out on Twitter or something. I was like, oh, so this is a real job. I didn't know that.
Okay.
So I fell into it by complete accident, and then I joined PayPal. I
Oh.
think then it just, yeah, I mean, PayPal was a great place to work, and I still think it's a fantastic place to work. You work with
Mm.
money, and money is like very
Yeah. Wait.
difficult to explain to users, and then there's a lot of legal stuff that you need to explain to users, or can't really explain to users, but need to let them know in a different way. So I think PayPal was super interesting to work, but for me, Spotify was my dream to work at Spotify. So
Yeah.
when they
That.
when they approached
Yeah.
me, I said, "Yeah, I'm going."
Yeah. That's how I connected you to Spotify's my kind of dream too. So, what you did in undergrad in bank?
Sorry.
Your undergrad.
Oh,
What you?
I studied mass communications for my
Oh,
undergrad. So
in bank.
I actually it was communicative English in Christ back then,
Okay.
and then I did
Okay.
a master's in publishing here, and then just stayed on. I didn't want to come back. I love London. I think it's the best city in the world.
So you were into different countries, right? Sweden, London,
Yeah.
and India. So how you explain how you say the cultural difference with this country?
Uh, Sweden is very different from any place I've ever been. It's super. It's the opposite of what India is. And when I lived in
Yeah.
Sweden, I really miss like the noise and the chaos. And I think I need that. So I think that's why I like London, because it has the balance of both.
Okay.
But I would say like Sweden's a particular place to live in. I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was for me. Culturally, I think first of all, the food in Sweden is really bad. I can't live there because of the food.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
food's really bad. I think that was the biggest difference. And in general, like Swedish people are a lot. Culturally, they're like more. I think technologically they're a lot more advanced, but you don't realize the privileges you have there until you go to other countries. So
Okay.
I'll give you an example. But when you do user research and stuff, in you think of yourself in Sweden, or you think of yourself in England, and then you go to India and you try using different things, and you're like, oh, it's a whole other world to use things here. So I think a lot of things, infrastructure, culture, everything plays into
Hmm.
your daily life as well.
Yeah. So about Spotify, what's the best thing about working at Spotify?
Free Spotify Premium. I'm joking.
Yeah, I'm already previous.
um,
So
I think for me, it is working on like an app that I've been using Spotify since 2009. So for
mm,
me, it was working on an app that I've used for so long, and nothing comes close to it. Like you are a user and you are building it. So I think it's quite a privilege. I really enjoy that.
oh, okay. So my other question is, as we designers, we look at Spotify and other apps for inspiration.
Mm.
So, what you guys look for inspiration? Because Spotify is a top-notch as UX wise, it's a top-notch solution. So, where you guys look for inspirations?
Thanks for saying that. But I don't know. It depends on what we are building or what we're actually looking at. But we look everywhere. I actually think it's really nice to look at locally created apps in other countries and how they design for their audience, because it teaches you a lot more. When you design an app that's in several countries, it's really important to look at that. And that's something I learned at PayPal as well. You have to look, I think, obviously, you look at your usual tech companies, and then you look at how the people who actually use these kind of apps use it in different countries. So I think it's important to look at that.
And coming to PayPal, it's kind of, as you said, it's a fintech app. So it's really hard to get users to come and have that experience. So, was there any big challenge when you were working at PayPal compared to Spotify?
I think money is harder to. Music is easy to sell to people.
Yeah.
Everyone wants music. Everyone wants podcasts. Everyone wants to be on it. It's fine. I would say it's a little easier, but something like PayPal, asking people to hand over their most personal details, like your financial standing, your probably your bank or credit card details or your date of birth, even like things like your date of birth. All these are, they're essentially like your part of your identity. So I think it's actually like a lot more challenging to work on those things.
Fantastic. So, do you think UX writing or this thing can allow more writers to come into tech?
Yes, I do think so. I think writing, being able to write is like the base, but I have to add that you need to also know how to think like a designer, and really know how to be empathetic enough to put yourself in your audience's shoes, to be a UX writer. And I often say that, oh, I'm a writer, I'm going to do UX writing. So I always tell people like it's a bigger process. There are a lot of other things, but it's a good place to start.
Okay. So now coming back to Spotify, how is your day at work look like? I mean, you can tell both before pandemic and after pandemic.
I don't know. My days never look the same. It depends on. I work across many different projects. I support 4 designers, so I could. It depends on what stage the project is in. So sometimes it's like coming in, looking at research and like writing copy, or sometimes it could be like going into research, wondering what we need to learn, or sometimes I could be in a design sprint. So it depends. I don't really have
Daily routine.
a regular day. But I can confirm it starts with reading a lot of Slack messages and emails and comments on Figma usually. But my day's not changed that much pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Well, more meetings now online, which I don't like.
Okay. So now coming to the skill set you needed for UX writing, I you know most of the attendees here are students. So how can you get into UX writing or UX in general?
I think the first step would be understanding what it means, like how to write. I think there's different kinds of writing to do. So you could be doing a lot of marketing writing, which means you need to make things sound really cute and quirky and catchy. But that's not what we do. Like your as a UX writer, your job is to write and make something as simple as possible. So, and I think that's a very difficult task. So, I think there are like a lot of books and resources online. I can share them with you, but there are a lot of books and resources online related to how you can write for UI, and but I think a lot of it boils down to like being able to be collaborative and knowing how to work with product and design, and how your skill makes a difference to what you build. But there are lots of great resources out there which I can share with you that you can teach. The second thing I would say is to have like a portfolio. A good portfolio is really important to show your different kinds of writing, because it's not just writing strings and button copy. You might write transactional emails, you might write things for product education. So all of those, having those things are quite important. And I think like I think it's okay to critique. It's really difficult to get actual experience in your portfolio when you're a student, and I know that. But I think you can, if you want, you can critique valid other apps out there. But you need to remember, like every decision was taken by a designer and a writer on their team, and you need to question that before you critique it. But the other thing is also like build a website for your friend. Something like that. It could be, because I think it's important to get that context. You need that context, and you need that research, and you need to know like what the aim is, to actually get that. So I mean, if you need to build a portfolio, freelance work, build a website for someone anything.
Cool. So, so when coming to portfolio, if you are hiring someone, what all stuffs would you look at his or her portfolio?
As a writer, you are a storyteller, so make sure your story is cohesive. It has a good narrative, and you know the story you're telling is correct, and it's there, and it's easy to understand. That is the first thing. The second would be your basics. You will not like. I see portfolios all the time for writing, and it's full of spelling and grammatical errors. You have to be mindful of that. And the third thing would be, I don't know the third thing. I think those will be the top two things I say actually
Okay.
that you look for.
Okay. So coming to your team, how big is UX Spotify team? Or
UX writing at Spotify, we are only 25 compared to like I think Facebook has like 500 and Google has about 250. So we're quite small.
okay. And about the entire UX team, how big is it?
I think we 25 UX writers and about 300 designers.
Cool.
So it's a pretty big team.
We have some questions in the chat. Yeah, can you explain the writing process? Many designers are not looking into it actually.
I don't really like it. Let me. I think I have some notes here about my writing process. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, like you kick off with the meeting. This is my ideal process. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen every time. I have to say that. But my ideal process would be to be there from the kickoff meeting, then gather existing insights, and look at any existing work that's already been done. And then you audit any existing content. You look at your competitors, look at how you want to talk to your user, and that's how you develop your content strategy. Like what we are saying, how do we say it, and why, and when do we need to say it? Like that's like the crucial thing of building a content strategy and how you want your tone of voice to come across. And then you like start exploring different solutions, and then you go into your usual qualitative testing, or A/B testing. But I think qualitative testing is important because it tells you the why. A/B testing tells you what is wrong.
Yeah.
Qualitative tells you why. So, and then you test solutions, and then you go back and edit your copy, and then you go through. We have a localization process, so we have to go through because our copy is being launched in different languages in different countries, and then you go iterate the design again if we need to, and then we ship, test, check early metrics, see if any changes need to be made. Yeah, I think that would be my process.
So that's how it's done through testing and.
Yeah, testing is probably the most important thing for your copy. I think I often say that, like, I think in the beginning stages of my career, when I was an editor and publisher, I was like, yeah, I know how to write this best. No, you don't. You need to listen to who you're writing for.
Not what the users want.
Exactly.
What was the biggest challenge you faced at work? I mean, in UX writing.
I think this is a constant challenge for me, both PayPal, Zomato, Spotify, everywhere. But I feel like UX writing is a new thing that's coming up. It's where UX design was maybe in, I don't know, 2013, 2014. So I feel like there is a lot of selling yourself and your skills and what you can do and how you can improve the product. So I feel like there's a lot of that work where it's not like design, where like, oh yeah, we need a designer, bring on another designer, but we don't I just feel like we need someday we'll get there, but we need more buy-in for what we do.
Oh, okay. And one work that you are proud of, whichever.
The Spotify Lite app is probably my best work so far, I think. If you should check it out if you can.
Yeah, sure. Let's move to chat section. So Sweden is a big yoga center, Abid. So Abid was at Truecaller. He was product guy at Truecaller. Now he came back. Yeah, he came back to India for parota and beef.
It's a very valid reason. I really, really want, and Karimin fry.
Abhi is one of our community advocate too.
Okay. Hi.
So there's no going back once you get premium. That is it.
That's really nice to hear. We've also just launched Spotify in Malayalam, so if you use it and find anything off, please let me know.
Oh, there's a Malayalam version?
Yeah.
We never check. I never checked it.
Yeah, I think your device language needs to be in Malayalam for it to.
Okay. Yeah. I work at a keyboard company. It's a translator stuff.
Yeah.
I think Abid has something to ask.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Abid.
Hey.
Hi.
So I just want to know how you deal with different languages, right? For different languages is always tricky, especially when you do vernacular in India. You do something in English, with translating it directly will be very arrogant in Hindi, right?
Yeah.
How you deal with as international app, like how you deal with that kind of writing challenges.
I don't personally think we have the perfect solution for this, but I do believe the perfect solution is to have a writer who can do work in both languages. That would be ideal. But if not, there are so many experts out there. The key ingredient here is to give your localization person or whoever is dealing with that or that translator the context and tell them like what you want the user to achieve and give them notes about the connotation in English and ask them what would it be like in this language. And I think it's a very difficult thing to get right. It's like you can say something and it might even sound arrogant in English in another country.
Yeah. UX writing is tough for me to understand is because usually content marketing gets involved. Right? At the same time, when we were doing stuff for Truecaller, we have like these translation teams that also comes into play. Then there is UX team and there is UI designers who do the default, like the first copy, right? Like getting the final code, who have the final say on that? Like let's say for a Spotify website, is it the marketing team or the UX writers or is the collaboration? That process looks like at Spotify.
It's definitely a collaborative process because it depends on the context. If it's a website, if it's actually a campaign, then obviously the brand team is going to get more weightage. They might get, but I can come in and be like, listen, this is not going to matter to a person in India, or I can tell them that. But then it needs to get that's when it has to go through a transcreation process. So that ends up being important. You have to translation is the direct translation of strings. Transcreation is what you do when you need to get that exact. You want to evoke a certain emotion. So I would say then it needs to go through a transcreation process. And I write at Spotify, PayPal. I wrote the source copy. If it didn't come back, if it didn't work in another language, I would get it back and be like, okay, rework this. So.
So last question for me. There is a lot of people who just came to know that UX writing is a thing, right? Like even if I tell my team, I lead the design team at Mastery, and also I was leading my design team with Assessed Money, it's an Indian payment app. People don't get even like what UX writer has to do, right? We usually bring in a copywriter and do the UX writing, and I generally not happy with that. Like I usually do it myself, but if I have to learn, or I think many of people who participating in these forums itself are students. If they have to get started with somewhere, right? What's the good resources available online? If there is any community, who's the good people to follow and Twitter to like keep updated on what's happening around?
There is a long list. Actually, I will send it to Niaz because there are a lot of people you can follow on Twitter. There are LinkedIn communities, Facebook communities. There are so many books you can read, and there are several conferences and events, and a lot of them are even free to attend. There's lots happening. I will send those resources, and I think they'll be really helpful.
Cool. Thanks.
No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you.
We have another question in chat. Do UX writers also need to adhere to accessibility standards?
Yes, 100%. I'm actually like, I'm quite interested in accessibility, and I think, especially, I write the talkback and voiceover copy as well, so I have to know. And I'll send you a recent blog post written by one of my colleagues, and she talks about how important UX writing is for accessibility in that. Uh, but yeah, I mean, your words are being read out to someone, so and I think like we try and make a conscious effort to make it not sound, make it sound okay, and make sure that we don't use words like tap the link above, because you can't really go up if someone's using it on a screen reader. You can't really go up, and yeah. So I think I can send you. I think writing is actually like the most important thing for accessibility. Like how you structure your content is part of what you do, the information architecture. So super important. I think we have another question about who we report to. I report to my design manager, and which is fine. But I think in most other companies they have UX writing managers who end up reporting to a design lead. So we are embedded in the design team, in the design org at Spotify, and at PayPal.
We have how's interaction between content and design team working?
Really well, actually. I work directly with my designers, so we are embedded in different design teams. Every business unit, it was the same at PayPal. Every business unit has their own design team, and that they further segregate into smaller teams. And I work with about 4, 5. I used to work with 15 designers. Now I work with 5. So yeah, I think it's great. Like they consider me as a designer, which is great. And my opinion is valued. So I think it's great.
Next thing, how do you maintain your portfolio? That's a question in chat.
How do I what? How
do
do
you
you?
maintain your portfolio?
I don't really know. I think I created a website when the lockdown first started as like a project on the side, but I personally don't maintain it at all. When you start looking for jobs, you need to. But I guess it's good to like keep. I would say it's a good habit to keep updating things if you think there's something worth value putting it in, because a few months later you don't remember anything. You don't remember like, oh, why did I do this? Then you have to go find and think what you did. So regular maintenance is good.
Uh, the next thing we have, how do you keep your how do you keep yourself updated in the field of UX
Uh, Blogs, podcasts, Twitter, everything is at your fingertips, so it's quite easy to stay updated on things. But there are a lot of good podcasts out there about writing and design, so those are quite helpful.
We have another interesting question about UI. Like if you're translating this to different language, there would be constraints in space. I mean UI. So how do you manage it?
This is also detailed in the blog post that my colleague just wrote. But for instance, we don't have a perfect solution right now. So for instance, if you have on the Spotify start screen, if you got sign up free, or anything, like even at PayPal we had this, like you can't, you have to keep in mind, like this is something you learn on the job. But for instance, I know that a button in English, in Finnish or German, it's going to be even longer. In Japanese and Korean, it's going to be like at least 20% shorter. So I think you need to keep that in mind, and you can't have long buttons. It's just, I think it's something you learn with experience, and you have to keep thinking. Like you have to also think, because it's not just a button size. You have to think about different screen sizes, because the buttons are going to get smaller. I don't think anyone has a perfect solution to that right now, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's something we also face. We have around 25 keyboards, IMA input tools. So it's something that we also trying to solve, but we
Yeah.
kind of adjusted. Concern is the yeah. There's an interesting question about flower and lights.
Any role for dummy text, I can confirm no. I think it's actually really important. Even if you don't have the final copy, you don't put lorem ipsum, but you put in like what goes where. Like this is where the CTA will be. This is where we convey what we need. I think it's really important to put that level of information in there. Lorem ipsum might help with um, field character requirements, not anything else. But even then, I would say like put in a proper sentence so people understand how much like it makes a direct connection of like, oh, I can only fit something this small in there.
Also, there's some words convey the meanings,
Yeah.
like but.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I have a question. Do you?
And I'm also just checking. There's one about how do you like. There's one if it's if you're a graphic designer, your work is visual, so you can show it. But here, you can just take a look at like you can put a screen in that you wrote copy on, and talk about like what the research said, why you picked those words to be there. Like I often say that like when you write, you need to be able to justify. Think that you're in court and you're justifying each word that needs to be that's on the screen. So talk about why you made those choices, what made you make those choices. It's UX writing, it's not just about showing that you can write, it's about showing why you wrote those words. So I think that's important to show in your portfolio. Yes, you're on mute.
There's another question about workflow.
But what? Sorry?
Your work. I think we already covered that
Okay.
work process. So to do, I think that one also we will. How you showcase your portfolio.
Yeah, and learning part for UX writing, there are actually some courses out there that I can share. There are a couple of courses out there that are quite good. I'll share those links with you as well.
Yeah, I will share it everyone. If someone has questions, you can raise hand and about copy. I think he meant copywriting. I think he's asking for some example.
Copy is the words on the screen.
Yeah, I think copy is very technical term, right? Like
Yeah, it is.
Copy, verbiage, and everything is very technical. Okay. Whatever is the running text in a app or marketing content, usually you refer to as verbiage or copy.
Yeah. Suppose you've not really taken a course. Yeah, you don't need to take a course as long as your portfolio or your work can speak for itself. I've not done any courses. I'm at 45, so it should be okay.
Yeah, that's another question most people ask. Which course to take as a UX designer? I think portfolio matters the most, right?
Portfolio matters a lot. Yes. How do you put yourself out there? You know what? This is just reaching out to people on LinkedIn. People are really approachable. If you're interested, reach out to people in other companies. Talk to them about what their process is like. Everyone's really helpful. So Twitter and LinkedIn.
So is that it?
Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions after this, like you know how to reach me, so just I'm happy to answer.
So we can actually stay back and take tables after this if you want to. communicate and network. There's a
Mhm.
feature in our Meet like that. So I think we can end this.
Okay.
So thank you, Anjana, very much.
And thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
You come this early and
No, it's not that early. It's fine.
okay. Thanks
Okay.
again.
Thank you.